The boys are back. The Deal Champs are back. We're live. It's been a couple weeks. We haven't had everybody back together. But welcome to another episode of the Deal Champs podcast. I'm your co-host, Mr. Stratton Brown, a.k.a. Strat Daddy. I have a 7-figure real estate portfolio. We wholesale a couple houses. We buy creatively. And what else we got? Man, we got the master of COVID, the master of hair, Mr. Jason Pritchard. Back again.
100% healthy now, man. 100% healthy. I beat it. Just a cold, man. I'm doing great over here. Good to have everybody back together. Good to have Captain America with us. For those of you guys that don't know me, I am Jason Pritchard. I started investing full-time in real estate end of 2014. Before that, I worked 15 years in corporate America in sales and sales management. I hated my job, was unhappy with everything that I was doing, and I burned the boats and went all in on real estate. Since then, we have flipped close to 400 houses. I own a rental portfolio in Central California of just over 100 units. And the whole point of what we're doing on this podcast is to try to transfer all of the skills that we've learned, give you guys as many valuable nuggets that you can use to apply for your business for free. Excited to have Lame on the show today and hear what he has to say. And I will pass it over to our other co-host, Mr. Captain America, Dean Rogers.
What's up, guys? Dean Rogers here. My story is I transitioned from the NFL to corporate to then real estate. Been investing now for a decade, just hit my 10-year mark, investing in Central California. We've done 600 deals now. We broke the threshold.
Hey.
Let's go. Rental portfolio is almost $10 million. Trying to grow that as much as possible. Get all the tax benefits. I've been coaching students through the wholesaling playbook, and you guys can always connect with me at deanrogers.com.
All right. So we have one of my closest friends on here, Mr. Lame Kinikini.
Kinikini.
What are we going to call you? The Tongan Superman. There we go.
There you go. What a name.
The Tongan Superman, bro. Let's go, baby. Shameless plug. He's a part of my mastermind, and he's a very close friend of mine, Mr. Lame Kinikini. Absolute killer in the space. Only been in for about 2.5 years now, Lame.
Yeah.
And I'll let him introduce himself from here, but he's
a
wealth of knowledge.
Hey, I am a shoehead. That's first and foremost. Strat, hey, thanks for having me, Dean, Jason. Appreciate you guys. I'm excited to just have a seat at this table. So yeah, I should say I officially bought my first investment property back in 2018. At the time, it was a primary residence. I didn't know I'd turn it into an Airbnb until I finally did. And then really when I decided to leave, a high velocity, I was getting paid well sales job in the door-to-door industry, I kind of looked at, hey, what do I have in front of me? What do I know how to do? And I had an Airbnb. And so I jumped into property management. That evolved into acquisitions, specifically creative. And we've vertically integrated since. So my company essentially does anything in the short-term rental space, all the way from acquisition to design, setup, and management. So that's what we do. Glad to be here.
Bro, let's get started. I think one thing that a lot of people are transitioning from their 9-to-5s, and me and you had conversations for about 2 years about leaving your job, doing all sorts of mental math about what it would take, what it looks like, how to be prepared, protect your downsides. Talk about that journey, because I think a lot of people go through that at the beginning.
100%. Well, it's funny because you say like we were doing the mental math, and like looking back in hindsight with 2020 now, I realize the math never makes sense. It never does. And I think that's the biggest thing that people need to realize, is because I just remember I was always just looking for something that made a ton of sense to jump into if I was going to leave this job that I was making multiple 6 figures. And it never makes sense. It doesn't. But I'm just so thankful, because at the time when I decided to jump, it was shortly after my father-in-law passed. Remember, Strat? Yeah. And that was a huge change in momentum with my family specifically, because the job that I was doing, which was door-to-door sales, was very intensive on my family. And so really that kind of made me stop and think, okay, I don't want to be doing this for the rest of my life. And I'm now getting to a point where I just need to make a jump. And I did. And, credit the mastermind, because, I'm the guy that used to be total anti-mastermind, anti-courses. I used to think they were scams. I used to think they weren't worth the money. And it wasn't until Strat was like, hey, come to mine. come to mind. And that was right where I met you, Dean. That was where I met Kyle Stanley, who later became a very important key piece in all this. And that was really the jump start to like, hey, I just got to bet on myself. I just got to jump and do it because there's people around me that are doing it. You know, why not me? And so kind of to answer your question directly, the math never makes sense, guys. What you said, Jason, I think is simple genius. You got to burn the damn boat. And once you burn the boat, you put yourself in a mental capacity that you can't replicate without burning that boat.
That's right.
Like, genuinely.
Yep.
And so for me, that's what it was. And I'm so thankful I did.
That's awesome, bro. Like I just want to piggyback off of that because we get a lot of this questions and you said it very well. Like I think all of us on this episode are the type of people that perform very well under pressure. And looking back, I'm self-aware enough to look back to know that had I had my job while I was trying to do this, it would have been so hard for me at the beginning that I probably would have just defaulted to saying, hey man, this isn't really for me. And, you know, maybe it's just for guys like Dean and Stratton and all these guys that we see on social media. Maybe I'm just not cut out for this. And I had to be in a place where I was operating with no safety net. And as soon as I got there, I think we all have this gear mentally that we can downshift and say, we're going to make this shit happen no matter what. You know what I mean? And I think it takes that for a lot of people to be able to make it happen. So really, really good insight. First nugget of this show for me, for sure.
100%.
What was it about the job that you had and real estate that said, I want to go the real estate route? And was it coming to the mastermind? Was that like the time that you transitioned? Because I remember meeting you there and you were it seemed like you were just kind of getting the wheels turning. Yeah.
So it's funny because real estate was never, I mean, I think everybody likes it. I think it's kind of like it's one of those like trigger words that when people say they're in real estate, it's like suddenly, you know, there's a lot of things that people automatically associate to it in terms of success, money, etc. I never had that. Like to me, I was just like, I need a freaking way out and I need one fast. And like when you start to boil it down, there's very few industries that you can scale quickly and feed your family quickly. And real estate was one of them. And at the time I had Airbnbs. I was in the Airbnb industry, but again, I was just doing it the old boring way, which is buy property, live in it, move out, and then you rent it out. Right. And we all know that you don't get wealthy doing that. You don't become a real estate investor buying one house at a time. Right. And so, and it's funny because what masterminds do for you, apart from the knowledge, apart from, you know, new strategies that you learn, you surround yourself with just a group of mindset, like a group mindset of like, hey, there's always a way to do something better. There's always a way to figure it out. And I think that's what the mastermind did for me was it kind of just took what I had already started, which at the time was just a little campfire, and it was the gas to pour on it. And so I walked away from it just thinking like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I just know I need to commit all of my time and resources to this. And so I burnt my boat. And I remember, I tell this to people all the time. When I walked out and I had told, I'd officially left, like that was the best day of my life. It was extremely liberating. It was extremely like, oh, this feels right. And then the worst day of my life, one of the worst days of my life was waking up the next day. Because then you wake up and you're like, oh, hell, what am I going to do now? How do I do this, right? But again, like you said, funny. Jason, like when you put yourself against the wall, you then enter and give yourself permission to step into a mental state that you can't replicate anywhere else.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's where dogs are made, right? And that's, to me, that was all I needed. So
you said something there about the numbers never making sense. I think that's such a valuable point to make because there's going to be a lot of people that are looking to get started and they're looking for that home run deal to start, the one that's super easy, where all the numbers line up and everything's going to go perfect. Those are the needle in the haystack type of situations.
Most deals are base hits.
Like,
and then you get some home runs.
Every single one of us right here have had some home run deals at this point, but God knows that it's not every single one. And there was a lot of deals we had to go through and a lot of deals we had to mess up to get to that point. Like my first flips, I lost $100,000, right? That was not fun. And I wasn't in the position to lose that money. So like, I think waiting on the sidelines for that perfect deal is a mistake to where you'll always be waiting and you'll just never find it, right? Yep. And you'll never get started.
And people, I think to add to that, people grossly undervalue the very first few mistakes that you make because they are extremely valuable in your career. Not just in like the actual strategy of, okay, now I know not how to lose money, but also just the emotional bandwidth you develop, the emotional mental. Yeah. Just like, hey, I can do this.
Oh, yeah.
I can do this.
That's a good
point.
I
took this fat L and I'm still here swinging, right? And so like people don't often value the really failing. Failing is so valuable, especially early on. So
such a good point. I remember some of my failures, like my heart beating out of my chest, like hardly being able to go to sleep because it was just like so painful. But I'm telling you this, the mistakes I made could have been easily avoided. Like maybe God just had to put me through that challenge or something, but like they could have been avoided with better guidance, with mentors, with coaching, like could have avoided that for sure.
So I have a question for you because I heard you say something. You went from one day being the best day quitting. And like, I know, and I can remember even still what that weight felt like coming off of my chest when I left my corporate job. The next day, being scared shitless, right? And just being like, damn, what's now? What do I do? Right. So I think a lot of people don't talk about that, man. You know what I mean? And I think I've always said, I wish I would have done a better job of documenting my come up, my start at the beginning on social media, because it would have really shown the social proof of like, here's what we had to do to get our first deals. Right. And I waited until I flipped like 50 houses before I ever turned the camera around on myself and started feeling comfortable talking about it. So what was that like for you? I mean, what did the first days and weeks and months in that first year kind of look like as you were just figuring this stuff out as you're going?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, it just looked like 60 to 80 hour weeks, it's just a lot of grinding. There's a lot of, I think, and I'm going to speak more to the mental side and then to the strategic. I think mentally and emotionally, you realize that not everybody's cut out to do this because not everybody can handle the amount of pressure, the amount of stress that it takes to be able to perform at that level. Are you guys still here with me?
Yep.
Yeah, we lost your video, but yeah, we
lost your webcam.
Okay, let me restart it. But I'll kind of just keep chatting on my thought. So first and foremost, mentally, you start to realize why very few are able to actually walk this path and do this mentally, because it is an exhausting and it's a cost that runs throughout your entire family. Your wife feels it, your kids feel it.
Yeah.
But that also puts a lot of action in place, right? There's certain things that you just now have to do that like you couldn't if you had that boat chilling there still, right? And we call that boat the 9 to 5. We call that boat the primary job, the safety net, right? Once you get into this mental capacity where you can't actually, where all you can do is act to grow, it then moves to this obsession over just getting very good at what you do, because there's no other choice. There genuinely is no other choice other than to just grow and to learn. And that's where, Strat came into play, just in terms of opening my eyes to this world of mentors that for years I thought was a scam. I legitimately thought that those things were scams and that they were just like not worth the time. But as I started to develop this mindset of like, hey, I need to grow, there's no other choice. What better way to learn how to grow than the people that have already done what I'm doing? Right.
We lost you again.
You lost me completely.
The video's gone.
We got your audio. Video's gone.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this tees up a good question for you. So we got a question from Connie here saying, how do you find mentors and coaches?
So good
while
question.
We wait.
Sorry guys, I'm trying to see if I can reset this while I talk. So for me, and this is the advice I give to everybody that comes to me with this question, because I get this question asked a lot. And I think the first and foremost is getting clarity on what you actually want and what you want to do. Because I can tell you probably all get this. Like I can tell you how many people want to come. They're like, hey, I want to be real estate. Okay, what does that mean? It's like, oh, I want to do a deal. It's like, okay, do you want creative? Are you going to flip a house? Are you going to wholesale? There's so many ways to do it, and it's so hard because they don't have clarity and they don't know that they don't, right? But part of the mental side that I talked about is it gives you clarity to be able to then go find the right mentor and the right advocate of who can teach you with that. Because I can't tell you how many people, and I'm going to name a few names of mentors that I love and I enjoy, but I think you guys will get the point I'm coming across. How many people do we find with Tony Robbins? He's a big one, right?
Yep.
How many people go to his events just to walk out crazy motivated, right?
Yeah.
But then you see them next year at that same event in the same exact place wanting to be motivated again, right? Now, granted, I think Tony Robbins serves a very good purpose for certain people. However, if you are trying to get in real estate, he is not your guy, right? He is the worst mentor actually to have. And I shouldn't say the worst, but I mean, when it comes to actual execution and getting what you want and to where you want in a very specific field, you're going to find hundreds of other mentors that are far more valuable, that are also like nameless, that do not have the following that he has, right? But again, people often don't have enough clarity in their own lives to be able to understand who they need to go and speak to and who they need to learn from. And so they just get left by just going to these name brand people, right? They're going to Tony Robbins, they're going to even Grant Cardone's. Like, we all know Grant, he's not really a mentor, right? He's running a business. He's crowdfunding, right? You're not going to learn how to strategize, how to do a deal from guys like that. Granted, they serve a very specific purpose, but again, like when you're looking for a mentor, you need to find clarity in what you actually want to do. And in doing so, you're going to find the right mentors.
I agree with that 100%. And I think at the beginning, those people can help because they have so much content and they have this machine behind it, right? So you can go to YouTube, turn on Cardone, turn on Tony Robbins, and you can get that fixed. Because I think sometimes we just need an emotional boost, right? So 100%. Those things are good, but I think you have to dig deeper. And for me, I started going in my local market. Like Stratton and I both got connected with somebody that mentored us at the beginning. And it was just going and reaching out to people in our local market because I wanted to see somebody in my home base that was actually doing it. Like if I could see somebody from Fresno that was my age, that looked like me, that had a kind of a similar background or upbringing, I always walked away from those conversations feeling like, well, damn, if this person can do it, there's no reason or no reasonable excuse that I can't do it. So let me just start applying some of these things, and then those relationships kind of grow from there. So I think I agree 100% with your point. I think everybody has kind of their place when you're getting started out.
Yeah, find the right person.
What's going on, Burns?
A lot of time it's right in your own community. It's right in your own backyard. Yep. It's someone that's close to you and not kind of far and out of reach like the Tony Robbins, right? So
and just to add to that too, I think when you find clarity, it allows you to really compartmentalize certain mentors and what you want to take from them, right? Because in what I was doing, it was creative finance. It was Airbnb's first property management. It was vertically integrating into, design, setup, maintenance, and then going into acquisitions. That took 3 or 4 different mentors that were all dogs in a very niche space, right? And that was the most valuable thing I could have ever done for myself. And I did it just because I had a lot of clarity. And as I was taking time, I was like, hey, I now know how to manage decently well. I now need to find somebody that's vertically integrated that can add the design piece. I'm going to go find this person, right? Okay, now I want to start buying. I need to find creative finance key. Now I'm going to find this person. And I think oftentimes people make the mistake of trying to learn everything and trying to almost replicate exactly one specific mentor. Yeah. When in reality, like your best version of you is you. This is you.
Yeah. Yep.
And so you have to be able to find clarity in what you want and then pick and choose certain mentors to learn the right things that will help you develop your path and what you're doing. And so,
yeah, you just said something that someone gave me advice at a mastermind I just came from. And I think you just said it now for me. You probably said it for me to hear again, because there's something in my business on the coaching side I've been looking for to help kind of like be the path that's already been paved for me to follow. And the advice I got from somebody is like, I feel like I've just been needing to speak to you that you're going to be creating your own path. Like you may take some advice and some lessons and this and that from others, but like you're going to pave your own path and create a path no one else has before. And that's going to be where your success comes from. So I think the value in a coach and mentor is to help guide you and navigate through your journey, but not necessarily be every step that you take. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I think that's such a valuable point there.
Well, the hard part at the beginning. Go ahead, Lame.
No, I was just the one comment I was going to say. I think the biggest disservice anybody can do to themselves is having only one mentor. So,
oh yeah, and you see Jason's business, you see what I do, you see what Lame does, you see what Dean does. Their business model doesn't have to be your business model, and that took me something like a while to figure out. And me and Jason were talking about this, and I remember seeing all these like really big quote unquote wholesalers, and then I remember seeing Jason with like 2 employees. And Jason was making more than these dudes doing millions of dollars a year in rev with 2 employees. And I was like, well, that business model may be better. And it's still, you're in real estate, but like you kind of have to put your ego down by, all right, what do I want to build that really serves me? Right. And this goes into like that deeper entrepreneurship space. The business is there to serve you and your family, not for your ego to build some massive thing.
absolutely.
But I want to tap on something real quick. And I think you and Jason relate on this really well. And you didn't have a plan B, but I remember talking to you. I was like, bro, you're a killer salesman. You can always go back and sell again. But I think your greatest asset in what you've done is your sales skills.
Yep.
Talk about like how you cut your teeth doing that. Because bro, I don't know very many better salesmen than you, honestly.
Yeah. You know, door to door is its own beast. And I think it has a huge misconception. I think people see door to door and they put them below car salesmen. Sorry for our car salesmen out there, but in reality, I actually believe door to door is the elite of sales. I mean, there's very few jobs and roles where you can knock on a door, the person comes out freaking fuming, pissed, and then 45 minutes later, you're walking out of the house, you have a cold Coke in your hand, signed PSA, and they want you to marry their daughter. Right? Like, what happens in that 45 minutes? What happens in that 45 minutes is very, very, very valuable communication skills that you learn to develop, right? And, you know, it's funny because, you know, I was not like the best at what I did in that industry by far. Like I was not a killer salesman comparatively to some of the other dogs that were there. I was good in certain aspects. I felt like I was a good recruiter. I felt like I was a good leader. But what was interesting is like, as soon as I decided to take this jump and I translated this skill that I had in sales that was amongst all these killers, kind of like middle of the road, as soon as I translated it to real estate, it took off. It became significantly more valuable. And the reason I share that with you is because like for years, I told myself that this skill that I've developed is best suited and I'm paid the most here in this capacity. I really thought that. And that's why I stayed, right? But like I'm telling you right now that there are skills that we have all developed in past jobs that people I talk to all the time that are stuck in their 9 to 5. They're like, yeah, well, you know, I had a good friend of mine say like, hey, like, and I've been telling him to jump for a minute now, and he's in tech sales and he's making like $300K a year. And he told me over dinner, he was like, well, there's very few industries where you can work like, you know, 20 hours a week and you're still making 300 grand. And I was like, I'm telling you right now, that is a limiting mindset.
Yeah.
You have no idea what your time is actually worth until you put it to the market and you create something, right? And so I think to everybody out there that's in this mindset of like waiting to jump, you are a lot more prepared than you realize. And that's what I graciously found out as I jumped into real estate. I'm telling you, like closing these creative deals is nothing compared to selling a security system door to door. And what's ironic about it is I get paid like 5 times more. I'm making so much more money than that sale, but it, you know, for whatever reason, it's just a lot easier because of the context of real estate. And so, and that was the second piece to all this is like, you know, the difficulty and the amount of effort that it takes in a certain capacity does not always correlate directly to the amount of income.
Yeah.
Right. Just because it's more difficult does not mean you are going to make more money. In fact, I found that it's the opposite. Like
I have a bunch of things to say. So I want to piggyback on what you said initially. I think in our society inherently, I think there's this like negative association with sales professionals in general, right? I heard like car salesmen, insurance, things like that. And what I thought was really cool about what you said, Lame, was we're not going in there selling anything. We have developed our interpersonal communication skills in a way where we can go and imagine how hard that is, right? Knocking on somebody's door. This is a completely ice cold lead, right? There's nobody that's expressed any interest. They open the door mad. 45 minutes later, you've got the rapport level to a space where they like and trust you enough to make a serious purchase decision. The skills that it takes in order to do that are like off the charts, right? And so as soon as you can, that's what was like the light bulb moment for me, because I was always really good at that too. I did outside sales, all commission-based stuff. And once I understood like this is how a real estate transaction worked, there was a light bulb that went off where I was like, this is the same shit that I've been doing for 15 years. I mean, and now I can make 10 times the amount of money. And it's like that. And when you realize that leverage point, there's a light bulb moment. And then the other big point of leverage for me was when I was like, okay, I can do this really well, but then can I take my skills and transfer it to somebody else? And can I get them to do it really well? And that's where what you were talking about with your buddy, where you can get those skills to stick with somebody else. You don't have to be over there banging the phone. You don't have to be going on every deal. Let me show somebody else how to do it. Then let me build a team and have 8 or 10 people doing it. And then that's when I think you can really see the needle jump for you. Yeah. So lots of takeaways there, man. Yeah.
Bro, let's hit on your meetups.
Before we do that, we had a message here.
Bro, shout out the man.
I'm at Disney World with my family, and I just want to inform everyone who hate this show that you clearly also hate success, capitalism, and peace on the Middle East. So that's none other than Mr. Pat Hill.
At Disneyland, still dropping a comment, man. I love.
Yeah, he had to drop it.
To have his push notifications on for us.
Yeah.
Make sure he doesn't miss.
That's funny.
Bro, what's hammering on your meetups? Because I remember like, yeah, Lame, bro, start throwing meetups. Your deal flow will go through the roof, and then 2 months later, you have the fucking governor speaking at your meetup. So let's talk about that evolution of your meetups. That absolutely amazing.
First and foremost, it starts with community. Doug Fiafia is a good friend of mine who me and him were the ones that kind of headed that project. But originally, and I think a lot of good things come from just good causes. I'm Polynesian. It's a very small community, and the reality of it is our community, there's a lot of things that could be better. But there's also a lot of people in it that are doing fairly well. And our intent originally was just to bring people together in our community and highlight certain professionals at a certain level in the space. And what we found was there was just a lot of good support that came from it. We were able to get the governor there, Senator Burgess Owens. And honestly, it's funny when you give, I just think it's a principle of the world, call it the gospel, call it whatever you may. But when you give, you just get back in so much abundance. It's crazy how it works. Right. And like, that was what this was for us. Right. It was like, we were basically just giving our time, our efforts, our energy to be able to, I was taking literally, strategies that I was implementing that I was paying for, like 6 figures for, to learn. And I was just like teaching people. And like, what's crazy is like, because it was free, the most we've ever had at those are like maybe like 250 people. And like, for what was being taught there, that could have been a high ticket mastermind, Yeah. And it's just ironic how the world works. But, in response, we just got a lot of support. My business has seen major success because of it. And since then, I mean, that really is, I've done $0 in marketing outside of my own personal social media. And
that's crazy.
I can't tell you how, like, we just closed the fund where, we raised $600,000 in like, I think it was like 7 weeks is the time I did it. And it was all through relationships. It was all through just inviting people to my meetups, going to other meetups, and really in the name of giving more value than you take. right? And in all of these, all I'm doing is literally just teaching people about what I do. And I'm giving them real value. Like I'm telling them our cleaning strategies. I'm telling them our pricing strategies. I'm telling them things that I paid a lot of money for. And I do that for two reasons. One, because the law of abundance. It always comes back more than I can receive. But then two, it's the law of the masses. Like nobody's going to take action. They don't do it. Like no matter what you tell people, it's crazy how few will actually take action for whatever reason. And, you know, it's interesting to think that, you know, everything we learn in these paid masterminds, it's free knowledge. You can Google it. You can find it. Right. But being able to, what you really pay for is the skin in the game, but then also the mindset of somebody to be able to transfer to you of like, hey, go and take action. Right. And so I've just found there's been a ton of, you know, blessings. There's been a ton of abundance that's come from just me serving the market, me just giving as much as I can in knowledge and what I know. And it's come back to me tenfold. So.
But as you've transitioned from like growing your boring Airbnb business, what did you do to like take it to new levels? Because I know when I first met you, you were kind of in the beginning stages, right? Stratton was and still is like, you know, gushing about how good your sales skills are and like where you came from. But from the time I saw you at Stratton's event in his mastermind in January to later that year, us doing our big meetup in Fresno, had 600 people at it. You showed up like you were a whole nother animal in less than a year, literally like in 10 months. So what took you from where you were to just like taking it to that next level?
That's a really good question. And, you know, as I look back in hindsight and kind of narrow it down, I think there's a few important key points that come to my mind. The first one is like constantly being a student of whatever game you're playing, right? Like there was a certain point with Airbnb that I felt like I was, in terms of management, I was probably top 5 in Utah, in the state of Utah, right? And I just knew when I got there that is not where I wanted to be. And I knew that wasn't it either. Like I knew I didn't come this far just to come that far. And that's when new ideas started shaping of, okay, well, how with this turn of the market, how can I start buying? How can I start acquiring? How can I start flipping all this cash flow into buying stuff? And that was, again, where the student of the game came into play. Then I just went back and I repeated the same process I did to get where I was at that point, which was finding a mentor, finding somebody to learn from, just being a student of the game, and grinding. And so I did. And so I doubled down. That year, I just took everything I was making. I just started throwing it back into the business, into the acquisition side. And I think the second, you know, key element there is just being very hyper aware and obsessed of the market trends of your industry. I knew that Airbnb was not going to a good place. It was, you know, in terms of occupancy in the management space, that's why you see a lot of companies, you know, are closing their doors. There's actually a lot of management companies that are closing their doors, some big ones. There's a lot of people selling their Airbnbs because it's no longer profitable because that management piece is still there. But now the occupancy is down, so therefore their profits are down. And so I knew that if I was going to survive in this industry, I had to figure out a creative way to get my margin back, right? And that's where creative came into play. It was like, now, okay, if I can't go and buy because where rates are at and create a cash flowing Airbnb, I need to figure out how to make my cash flow, how to win it back. And that's when creative came into place. And so now I'm buying all these properties at sub 4% interest rates. And what I've done is effectively won back my Airbnb earnings, right? My Airbnb, I may not have as much occupancy as I did, but the cash flow is there because the debt's good, right? And so principles that I found really, really helped me was just being a constant student of the game, the evolving game, and knowing it's constantly evolving. And then the second piece is just being hyper aware of my industry. Airbnb occupancy was going down, so I had to figure out a way to kind of pivot. And so that's kind of where it led to. So
I love that. And I feel like when you look at our business and you take a look back, I always look at it as we have all these little levers and knobs that we can adjust, right? So we have the core business, right? And sometimes in a certain environment, we can adjust this lever over here and things can work very well. And then other times the market shifts and now we have to like crank this knob and do this dial instead. So I liked how you said how we had to pivot to do the creative stuff, right? How long? Because sometimes I feel like right now, especially, people are taking too long. Like even longer term operators that I've known, that I've looked up to, like they're still kind of like dragging their feet and pivoting, right? Where was it something with you where you just said, you know what, I see this on the wall and I have to go? Or did you seek guidance, or was it a combination of both? Like what gave you that confidence? Because you were still not new to the game, but you were still kind of, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Young in your journey, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes you get stuck and it's like, shit, this is what always worked for me. And we're too scared to like shift gears and find something else. So talk about how that process worked for you.
Yeah, I think there was a combination of factors. One of them was I burned my boat, right? And I was on this one boat that I found that there was a hole in it and there was water coming in. So I had to figure out how to do it, right? I think I was at a different position than most of the kind of these bigger companies are, of like, hey, pivoting sometimes means risking a lot. Whereas to me, I've already risked it. Like, you know, and granted, I had built something really good, but I saw the writing on the wall, right? And so I think by that time I was a little bit more bullish, a little bit more trusting, because I'd already taken the leap on myself and it worked. So now I'm going to start to take the second leap. The other factor I think that played into it was, and it was funny because Stratton was actually the one that put me onto creative. You remember that one conversation we had, Strat?
Yeah.
Of like the creative deal. And then from there, I just went to Rochelle Jarvis. Shout out to Rochelle. And she taught me really the basics of it. And then a few weeks later, we had our first creative deal. And really what served me well there, and this comes back to everybody's being prepared currently for something bigger, was my sales ability. Because really at the time, like creative, like was like still fairly new. The market has just tanked. Nobody had seen a seller finance deal for years, but like I was able to find a motivated seller and really just communicate to them the benefits of it for both of us. And we closed the deal. And really it took that one deal. And, you know, it's ironic because we've talked about this too, your fails, right? That one deal ended up costing me a crap ton of money. Like I lost a lot of money on that deal, but it was the best deal I could have ever done because of what it gave me. The confidence, the intellect, the know-how of doing my first deal creatively. Right. And it was a duplex that I did. I thought it was going to, renovations were only like 50 grand, 250 grand later. So it was, and a year and some later, it was just a big project.
So
I wasn't project.
Yeah.
But it all worked out the way it should have, because that one deal led to the next, which led to the next, which this month we're going to close 20 doors. Right. We have 20 doors under contract right now. And so it's just, again, like sometimes I think people just don't understand the value of what's in front of them because they take it at face value. Like they just see it for what it is. And they're like, no, it's not a good deal. It's like, I'm telling you, there is so much good that will come from this. If you just bet on yourself, if you just pivot, if you just do it. You know,
I love that, bro. Like it sounds like you relied on what your core competency was, which is never going to change, right? That sales ability, right? And even when we always talk about this, Stratton and I are constantly talking about this. When I go to try to do something new, I have no freaking idea what I'm doing, dude. Like if I level up and I try a more difficult project or something that's outside of our normal wheelhouse, I don't know every single step. But I'm confident enough in my ability because I can just figure it out if we just not afraid to take action, dude. And it sounds 100%. Like that was a big thing for you, man. So yeah, that's it. A lot of people just stay there because they want to figure the entire process out before they jump. And literally almost 100% of successful people that I've talked to, they take the exact opposite approach. They just do step one and they kind of figure it out as they go.
Yep. It's funny. I used to think, someone used to tell me like, all you need to know is 80% of a plan and you'll figure that the other 20. And I actually found that it's like almost like neat. Now I almost would say all you need is 20%. And then the value is in the other 80% in learning while you do it. Like that is where the value really comes into play. You
really just got to have a vision, honestly. Like if you have a vision, you'll be fine. Like everything else will figure itself out because you have that clarity aspect of that vision. And then you'll go solve all the rest of the problems there.
Yep.
Some dogs
shout
on
outs.
the pod.
We got Landon
Knowledge,
here.
bro. Knowledge. This is our boy, Landon Horn. Shout out Landon Horn.
Landon was my roommate in college when me and Stratton, all of us were good old Ephraim, Utah, baby.
There we go. Shout out to Anthony here. You guys are providing a lot of value. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for listening, man. It gives us energy to hear feedback from you guys. We do this from our hearts, trying to add as much value. We believe in abundance mindset and just giving and giving and giving. So we definitely appreciate all your guys' comments on here.
1 minute. We have some fucking red meat for Jason Pritchard right here. We have some very big red meat about talking to a private money lender, taking him out to lunch. And this is Jason Pritchard's alley.
Oh, yeah. Let's go. Slur it up there. Let's answer it. I like to hear your guys' feedback, too. So here's the question. Taking a future private lender out.
Did you see the slobber?
The foam is starting to go out of my mouth. There it is. One thing that I'm good at here, boys, is raising money. I've raised a lot of money. So taking a future, here's the question, guys. So taking a future private money lender out for something to eat soon and talk about how he can make a return on his money funding my deals. Any advice on how that conversation should go? So here's some advice that I would say to the person that posted this. One, you do want to ideally have a deal that you've either done or in the pipeline just to give yourself some more confidence. At the beginning, I think so many new investors, they think it's about the deal, but it's really about your relationship with the lender. So in order to give you confidence to talk about how to develop that relationship, if you have something tangible that you can bring, you're not just going to be there winging it. So if you've got a recent deal with numbers that you've closed, bring some information on that. If you've got something in the pipeline that you're looking at, bring some information on that so you have something tangible to talk to. But you need to realize, guys, when you're raising private money, everything is about your relationship with the lender. The deal always comes second. So the deal will be the collateral that secures the money that the lender is borrowing, but he's betting on you. You are the horse in that person's race. So if you can't, going back to what Lame was talking about at the beginning about developing relationships, connecting, building rapport, if you can't properly and confidently like project your vision to them, and you're going in there nervous and you're going in there with a mindset that I'm asking for money, it's probably not going to go your way. I think the subtle shift that has to happen is you have to go in there realizing that you're providing an investment opportunity, not asking somebody for money. And that's something that's very subtle, but very important, because the energy that you project when you're providing an opportunity is way different than when you're asking for money, right? So I would lead with that. And then if I'm connected with you on Facebook and you have other questions, feel free to DM me and I'm happy to answer them for you.
Let me let's hear your stuff, bro.
Honestly, Jason took it out of my mouth. I mean, really, when it comes down to it, money raising is all about confidence. Like it really is. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Like if you have confidence in yourself, in your ability to execute, and you can clearly communicate that, and it's not even being like a silver tongue. Like it really isn't. It's really just walking in there with confidence, genuinely. Like just being able to exude like, hey, I will make your money. I'll put it in a good place. I know what I'm doing. We're going to execute on this deal. And it's hard because it's something that can be learned, but it's something that a lot of people early on don't have. And that's where you just have to find the small wins to be able to develop it. You got to figure out a way to develop that confidence before you walk into that room. And so I think Jason said it well.
Yeah. And if you are struggling with the confidence, go do deals with people like us. And just like help build your track record and tag on to someone and learn. I mean, I did a flip with Aaron and Cletus just because I hadn't done a flip before. I was like, I want to be able to tap into their stuff, have everything I have going on. Like, hey, here's our before and after. Here's what we did. And then I had the best flippers in Central California. Shout out Aaron and Cletus. Show me the ropes, and then I get to learn from everything that they're doing. And then I'm all about making friends is the big thing. Like these are relationships you're going to be with them for the rest of your lives. And I mean, if you lose, let's say if you take a stinker and you lose a bunch of the money, if you're not really don't have a good relationship and friendship with them, that conversation may not go as well.
Yeah, there's a lot to be said about gaining confidence and borrowing confidence from someone else who's already experienced. So if you're just getting started, you're listening to this, you want to raise money, like maybe the quick path to gain your confidence is to partner up with somebody who you know, like, and trust in your market and you can joint venture with them and bring them into the picture so you have more credibility, right? That's what I actually did without having thought about it, without having someone told me. It just happened to work out that way, coincidentally. My first flips, aside from the ones I lost money on, when I was back in my market doing good flips, my first private money lenders wanted to meet in person. I had never done a flip in my market yet. And so we went with my brand new business partner and walked one of his properties and said, look at the work that we can do and our experience. And they said, yep, you guys know what you're doing. And that was the credibility that I borrowed from him. And we went on to flip hundreds of houses with those private lenders and that same business partner that I have to this day. So that right there is a great way to take it to the next level.
And then this one, getting into the weeds a little bit, is talking about problems you've had to overcome in your previous deals. I think that's a really good point. Because yes, we're all amazing operators, but just letting them know something will happen and we will take care of it and everything's going to be fine. But I promise you something bad is going to happen. And like, what is it? Set expectations.
Yeah. I'd lean on what Lame said is like, you don't have to have a silver tongue. You don't have to be so smooth. You just have to talk real about like, hey, this is how it works. This is the process. This is how it works. And, you know, here's some things we have had to navigate in the past. So if this happens, this is how I'm going to handle it type of thing. That gives a lot of confidence.
Love it.
Great points. All right, bro. So what does your portfolio look like now? And shout out Shane Green.
So Shane Green podcast, check it out. Deal Champs. I sent you a link in the chat there to subscribe.
What's going on, Shane? So my portfolio now is we have triple digit doors. I think we're around 120-ish. The majority of that is now, I can say, owned, where we own the majority of each individual property, and then the other half of that is managed, whether it's an arbitrage, which we have very few of those now, or it's co-host where we're just managing other people's real estate for them. Most of my day-to-day right now is spent in the investment side. All I'm doing is deal hunting and raising capital. And then I employ on the management side about 40 people. I have two main heads. I have Zach Larson. He's my business partner on the management side. And then Josie Dukes, our operations director. She's a dog. And she's young. She's 21 years old and she runs pretty much the whole ship. And so, but that's kind of what we do now. I mean, with the turn of this market, I get more and more excited every time the feds add to that interest rate. And so I'm not waiting or in any rush for it to stabilize, which I don't know your guys' thoughts, but I think it will in the next 24 months or less. But until then, we're just going to keep finding deals because they're there in this market. So
yeah, I think you have 18 months to buy. Me and Ian were talking about this. You have 18 months to buy the good creative finance deals to where you can actually like, hey, we are not going to be able to finance this through a bank. Like we both know this isn't going to happen. Like our best option is for you to carry the note and we'll do something like this, especially in like our commercial space, because they all know we can't get good. If they want a decent asking price, we can't go get debt on that thing.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. And that's why I love what I do is because as soon as those creative deals are hard to find, usually that means equity is going to go up on the deals that we've currently bought. And typically that means Airbnb occupancy, I imagine, is going to go up as well. So we're just playing the game that's in front of us and being willing to pivot to tomorrow's.
So I want to build on what you just said right there, Stratton, about the next 18 months, creative finance. I know you're heavily into that, Lame. So what are you saying? Like the market's going to get better interest rate wise in like the next 18 months to where creative's not as important or needed, or
100%. I just think there's going to be less motivated sellers. I don't think we're ever going to see, 4s, 3s again naturally in the traditional market. However, I think we'll see 6s and 5s. And I think once that number stops scaring people, we're going to start real estate. We're going to start seeing real estate move again. And because of that, I think the creative deals, aka motivated sellers, are going to be harder to find. Right. because I think people are just going to be more accustomed to the new floor of interest rates, and hopefully the economy is a bit better than it is now. Because really, creative deals are found in struggles, right? Like right now, I'm just finding a ton of people that, they can't. Like, for example, I bought 9 homes from a developer who he was the lender on. He self-lended, so he just used cash to develop this. I think there's probably about 50 homes, and they're all between the price range of 850 and 1.2. And we at 7% interest rate, that's almost a 5-figure mortgage, right? Who's going to buy that and live in it? Nobody. So I went and I just essentially negotiated a bulk deal where we got essentially all of them at 4% flat in the first 2 years, interest only payments. And this is in an area that's going to cash flow like crazy as an STR, and that's my ace in my pocket. But I only found that developer because he's not moving these properties. Nobody's buying that right now, right? And because of that, I can come in and essentially alleviate this guy of, essentially these homes that he's just losing money on daily, and in turn create an incredible opportunity for myself. And it's honestly why I love creative, because all of us know that when I'm going in to buy a property and I'm going in with a cash offer, you have to be a shark. You have to, because you have to make sure that your margin's there. I can't buy something if I'm going to flip it for more than 60 cents on the dollar. It just doesn't make sense, right? Whereas when you're in creative, like everything's negotiable. The down payment, the interest rate, the AM schedule, the balloon payment. And so really I can approach these motivated sellers with empathy. Like I can approach them and ask them, hey, what is your pain point right now? Right. And it's either, I need money right now. Okay, if I'm going to give you a bigger down payment to take care of what you need, what I need you to give me in return is a better interest rate. Right. And it becomes essentially a give and take. And I like it because it's a more natural conversation. And that's where I feel like I found a lot of success in this game of creative, is just because there's so much motivation. It's entertaining. Like there's a conversation to be had. So,
you know what I picked up from just listening to how you tailored that offer, that whole offer to me, just in this 45 minutes that we've been on this thing, seems to not just be tailored. It seems to be tailored around all your core competencies and your strengths and your competitive advantages, right? So your ability to even go out and approach a builder, right, that a lot of people are going to be like intimidated to do, right? To go there and actually talk and have a conversation, right? So that your interpersonal communication skills, right? Your ability to go raise money to fund if there is a gap, whatever gap you need to do that, plus your operating competitive advantage, being able to do an STR and maybe make a cash flow where somebody that's going to do a long-term rental, they even at the rates, they can't touch it, right? So it's like a 3-layered approach, right? When you stack all 3 of those layers on there, right? You're now, other people can't compete with your offer, right? And most people, going back to what we were talking about earlier, is that they just bang their head trying to do a cash deal, cash, 50 cents on the dollar. And that's not the only thing that works. And especially in this market, it's very difficult to do that, dude. So I love how you broke that down, and especially how it's wrapped around everything that you're great at.
Yeah. And really where we've found a lot of success is just owning the entire vertical. So as soon as we acquire that property, who's designing it, who's setting it up, who's managing it, that's all me, baby. Right. So we're essentially just feeding our own beast. But it's, again, it's funny. Like when I was talking to Strat, like, I don't know if you remember Strat, but like my vision of what Elk Ridge management was at that time was like, oh, I want to manage everybody's property and their dog. Yeah. Right. Like it was like this massive property management. I was like, I'm going to compete with Vacasa. I'm going to compete with all these guys. And like now where I'm sitting, I am so thankful that did not come to fruition. Right. And the point being is like, you don't actually know what you're building. You just know what's in front of you. And it's crazy because everybody calls me a genius. Not everybody. My wife certainly doesn't, but like there's a lot of people look at my business and they're like, hey, you're incredible. Like you're intelligent. How'd you think to build this? And my answer is always the same. You think I thought of this? Like I didn't actually think of this. I just solved every problem that was in front of me at that time. And then I turned around and I was like, holy hell, this thing's a business, And like, I think that really speaks to just taking action. Just do it, guys. Just solve the problem that's in front of you. And if you solve enough problems, like you turn around and it really is a machine, right? But people just aren't willing to, they're not willing to do that because they want to see that end vision and they want to see exactly how to get there before they start putting in the work to actually get there. Meanwhile, when you actually arrive, you're nowhere where you thought you would be, right?
Exactly, bro. You're such a dog. Love you. Any other questions you guys got? I know you guys have hard outs in a little bit.
I guess where'd you come up with Elk Ridge? Is that a Utah thing or what is that?
That's a good question. So I grew up in Bakersfield, California.
That's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah. So I'm Mormon. I served in LDS mission. I served in Ghana. In the middle of my 2-year mission in Ghana, soldier's mission. That I attribute a lot of my success to that experience, but that's a story for another day. But
I got to hear stories about that. That sounds wild.
Yeah. Basically was camping and pretended I was poor for 2 years. That's basically what I did. So
yeah.
But it was fun. But in the middle of my mission, my family moved to a little town called Elk Ridge, Utah. And when they moved and I got home from my mission, there was this beautiful girl next door that ended up becoming my wife. And so Elk Ridge is the city. And then my logo is these two next door neighbors for how I met my wife in the city. I met my wife.
That's dope.
Dang, the girl next door, huh?
Yep.
Wow. That's nice.
Yeah.
All right, bro. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can people find out more about you?
My Instagram, it's my full name, K. So HAILAMEK, Hylame K. And then you can find me there. Just DM me. My company's Elk Ridge Management. You can find us on Instagram as well. So we're on all the platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook.
Got to put this one up here too from Shane. Let's partner on a deal, Lame. I need to get a good midterm, short term in my portfolio. Would love to partner with you on one. There you go. That's how it starts. Level up.
Let's chat, baby.
Collaboration, baby.
Love it.
Bro, thank you for coming on, Tongan Superman.
Hey,
guys,
appreciate you guys having me. Appreciate you. Again, I'm just thankful to have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming on, bro. Real quick, housekeeping things. We forgot to hit like and subscribe. I got too excited. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Share this with your friends who brought you any value. Go give us a 5-star review. And again, our mission is to help you guys out and bring you guys value. If you guys are in Central California, we do have a meetup. Is it Thursday? We moved the time,
Thursday,
right?
6 to 8 p.m.
Right, Thursday 6 in Bakersfield.
6 to 8 p.m. in Bakersfield, California. Thursday night football doesn't matter. Come learn how to make some money. We'd love to see you. Come do some deals with you. But again, guys, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.
Cool. Appreciate you guys.
Peace.